out of what we know has been a very hectic schedule. Just give us your overview. You're overseeing a huge amount of the response at the county level. It's permeating into every community. Give us your sense of how the county is doing in response to this. The numbers look pretty good. It's not easy to say to those families who have lost somebody, and those numbers are always going to be too high. But how do you feel the county's doing?
Well, first, Mark and Kevin, thanks for having me on your show here. It's a pleasure to be here and update you as to the county response. The county is doing well right now, in large part because of the response of the residents of this county who have sheltered in place and who have adhered to the orders of Dr. Morrow. We are prepared. We got prepared very early on. We opened up our emergency operations center very early on, and then really started to build in capacity in preparation for a surge. We were able to get ahead of that surge and prepare more hospital beds, more ICU beds, and really kind of set up a hotel for COVID-19 patients, one of the first really in the state. So we were well prepared, and we continue to be well prepared.
And it turns out we didn't need all those facilities. I guess that's good news, but some people would say that's an overreaction. I'm sure you've heard from the same people most of us have. There is a strong, a noisy group of people is probably a better way of putting it, who say all this was overreaction, all this was unnecessary. What's your reaction to that?
Yeah, I just have to totally disagree with that. We're facing an unprecedented situation here. We all saw what happened in New York and other places around the country and around the world. And it would be just such a disservice to the residents of San Mateo County if we didn't prepare for the worst case scenario. And that's what we looked at here in the preparation of more hospital beds. We brought in a mobile field hospital. We set up a step-down facility for COVID-19 and taking over a hotel. We've ordered enough PPE to last us for a sustained period of time. We've really got testing up. We were one of the first ones to get testing up early, the drive-through testing up early. And we have a long ways to go there, but preparation is the key in any type of critical event, and making sure that you have your hands around this and able to respond in a responsible way is what our goal was. And because of the great men and women who work not only for this county, but for the municipalities and the elected officials around this county, we are prepared, and we know that has saved lives.
Kevin.
So, Mike, you're in the eye of this storm. You're sort of in the crucible of this, and you're a relatively new county manager, but you have a public safety background. I would argue, given that background, you're ideally suited to be dealing with this emergency that we have on our hands. But what has been the hardest part as a relatively new top manager dealing with a crisis? I'm sure you could not have imagined when you took this job that you'd be dealing with this on a daily basis. It's such a different job than what you signed up for, I imagine.
Right. But, it goes again back to the terrific men and women that we have working for this county. And that's been the best part. That's been the easiest part. Everyone has stepped up. So I may be the county manager. At every level of this organization, people have stepped up and just done a tremendous job. And you're right, Kevin, you can't prepare for something of this epic proportion. I mean, it's unfathomable, right? That you prepare for earthquakes and for fires and those type of crises that I've seen throughout my entire career in law enforcement prior to this, and then certainly with the county management. But you can't prepare for something that impacts the entire country at the same time, and you're all vying for the same resources at the same time. It's something that I'm very proud to be here and doing this and working with the board that has responded so well during this crisis, and have really implemented great policy during this crisis to really address a lot of the needs of the community.
Mike, the county moved very quickly to close down the county beaches. The state beaches are closed. The county parks were closed up until just this week. Some of them have been reopened. People are getting more and more restless. I was out hiking just the other day in Edgewood Park, and there were more people there than I'd seen in any one hike in a long time. Are you So the opening up process, which everybody's impatient to see, what's that going to look like in the next week, the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, let me go back, Mark, and just say why we had to close down the beaches and the parks, and that's because when the shelter in place went into effect, we saw people congregate on the beaches in small communities. They were in those stores in masses, and actually raiding the food supply of those small communities, which really put them at a disadvantage. Then we saw the parks. We had some of the highest numbers we have ever seen in the history of the parks as far as usage after that the shelter in place went into effect. People, a lot of people were off work, so a lot of people were out recreating, and we think that was positive. But we needed people to separate, and that's why we closed them down to begin with. We now have opened them up, and we want people to be responsible. It gave us time to step back and say, let's do this in a responsible way. Let's implement some strategic changes, one-way trails, separating people so they can get back to nature and they can get back to recreating. But I can tell you, moving forward, this is going to be the new normal. We have to, as things start to open up, make sure that we don't lose sight of the fact that this is a marathon. It is not a sprint. And that we make sure that we maintain our social distancing, that we wear masks, and that we continue to wash our hands and not congregate in these large groups that we saw before.
Let me ask you sort of a two-part question. One is, do you see people wearing masks indefinitely in public? And secondly, what is a restaurant going to seem like as you envision this going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're going to, I do think people will wear masks for the foreseeable future. And what it does, it really protects not the person wearing the mask, but the person that they're talking with. So if everyone's wearing a mask or somebody you're talking to wears a mask, you're protecting each other. So I do see that going into the foreseeable future as a safeguard. In restaurants, you're going to have to be able to scale to a level where it makes it profitable to be in business, right? And that's hard to do when you have to socially distance, when you have to space tables and put those less tables in. So we're hearing that some cities are contemplating moving to the outdoors with restaurants and taking over streets and closing down streets, and that seems like a viable thing. This is and that's what is so great about this county and us as a state and certainly as a country, the resiliency that we have, the ability to adapt. And I got to tell you, people have adapted. They don't like it, and it's certainly not the life that we're used to living, but people have adapted and they've overcome. And we will continue to adapt, and we will get back to normal someday, but it's not going to be for a while. We're going to have to maintain those social distancing, get creative in the way that we do things. And even going to the store now, you see how creative they've gotten as far as the one-way aisles and lining up and staying 6 feet apart. I think that's all terrific.
Yeah, I want to apologize for tending to my nose. Sheltering in place doesn't seem to limit you from hay fever. Kevin, go ahead.
So, Mike, I wanted to ask you about the economic impact. I mean, certainly we're in a public health crisis, but it's rapidly becoming an economic and fiscal crisis for cities and counties and states. What is the prognosis for what we're going to see in terms of unemployment numbers, for example, in San Mateo County? And what kind of assistance might you see primarily from the federal government, because states are going to have their own fiscal challenges going forward? What is your feeling about what the future looks like on both the economic and the fiscal front?
Well, I mean, the economics are going to be very tough for a while. The board has taken some great actions early on in regard to eviction moratoriums and rent increase moratoriums, and the same with commercial in the unincorporated area where the moratorium on eviction. Those things are important to get us through, the time being here. A lot of people are unemployed, and it's going to be a while to ramp up. We're worried about sales tax from a county standpoint and realignment dollars that we depend on from the state to operate as a county. We will see every city and county impacted. The question is, how long will they be impacted, and how deep will it be? And will we, surge again? And will we have to close down again? in order to address that surge, which could bring us another cycle of economic damages that are going to be difficult to overcome. We hope that businesses, through the help of the federal government and the state government, will be able to sustain themselves and hang in there. And, San Mateo Strong has been a tremendous asset. As you know, the board funded right off the bat $3 million into San Mateo Strong. That fund has grown to over $7 million because of great contribution by over 1,000 people. And that money is going directly back out to the community, not only in individual grants, but also in small business grants. Those are the type of things that we're going to need to hopefully sustain people so they can get back up and running and get businesses back open in a new way.
You mentioned another surge. I gather the fear of everybody is that there's going to be a comeback. You listen to the health experts and they say there is going to be a comeback, fall, early winter. Even if we continue to observe all the restrictions we're observing, and we're not going to. Clearly, more and more people are going to try and find ways to get out and return to whatever they think normal might be. How fearful are you of a virus comeback, and what do you anticipate that could be like? Could it be as bad as it is now?
I'm really worried about that, and we don't know a lot about this disease, and how it will react, and how immune people will be who even have the disease. How long that will last? We don't know if it'll mutate into different forms. These are the great concerns we have, and in every pandemic we've ever had, there has been a resurgence, and that second wave sometimes has been much worse than the first one. So we've got history to look at, and we've got to make sure that we take that in mind every time we go out into public and we think about how we're going to interact with other individuals. We cannot get back to business as usual. That is our greatest concern. We have to understand that. Listen, time is our friend here. If the longer that we can string this out and make sure that people don't get sick, and make sure that we have hospital beds available and ICU beds available and ventilators available, and we know more people will get sick as we open up. The question is, will people go back to those mass gatherings that will cause a spike type of surge? We know more people will get sick, but to the extent that we can spread that over a period of time and wait for treatments and wait for hopefully some kind of prevention of this type of disease, then that is what we're the best case scenario that we're looking for here. So people can't go back to that new normal. I know they want to. Everybody wants to. We long for those days, but it's just not possible right now.
Kevin.
Well, certainly there are changes to how we live our daily lives here in the county, Mike. This is a really big picture, sort of post-COVID question. What do you think the county looks like in 2030, for example? What is the county's identity in this region that we have for ourselves? Is it pretty much where we are right now? How are we going to be changed as a county when you look at our sort of place in the San Francisco Bay Area?
Yeah, I got to say we're learning a lot of lessons here, Kevin and Mark, as to how we can really operate as a county, as a government agency, how we can do remotely telework. For example, we've always wanted to do this, and we were a leader in teleworking, but this has brought it to a new level where we have 3/4 of our workforce right now out of the workplace. And we're not going to be able to bring them back in masses anytime soon. So I think that this will provide us an opportunity to look at work in a different way and how we operate in a different way into the future. And it won't be 2030. It'll be 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. It'll be different. But I got to say that also what has been amazing throughout this whole process is how all the cities, all the elected officials have come together and operated in a way that we're all rowing in the same direction. It has just been absolutely amazing. And I think that is certainly what makes San Mateo County so special. Everyone on the same page, everyone helping each other, everyone pitching in, everyone having great ideas. that has been something that we can build upon. We can build upon. And to the extent that we can leverage some of these things that we're doing now and consolidate resources in a way that are meaningful and make sense and provide the best value, but also the best service to the community, those are things that we need to explore in the future.
Consolidating resources, consolidating authority has been one of the longstanding conversations in this county, as all three of us can attest. Mike Callagy, County Manager, San Mateo County, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule today to be with us. This is a tough time for you, and we all appreciate all you're doing. I'm Mark Simon.
And I'm Kevin Mullen.
And thank you for being with us. Join us next time on The Game.